Hello, and welcome to What's That Behind You. If you are new around here, we release videos like this one every Monday, so please hit that subscribe button. But for now, let's get on with today's story. Today's story takes us to the village of Pluckley in Kent, once voted by the Guinness World Record book as England's most haunted village, with a reported solid 15 ghost legends, and today we will be covering just one of these, so we can revisit them if you wish. Please let me know down in the comments. As I stated, back in 1989 it was voted as the most haunted village, beating places like Ashford and York with their own rich history of supernatural. This is some kind of a feat. But today's story centres around a gentleman called Dickey Boss. Now this gentleman is so famous in the town of Pluckley, there are multiple legends that belong to him. The first being referred in the history books as the Hanging Man, the Schoolmaster, or the Ghost of Dickey Boss Lane. Our centre figure of this story, Richard Boss, also known affectionately as Dickie or Dick in the history books, was the town's miller. He owned the lane that the mill was on, and also the mill itself. He had many successful years tending to his mill, grinding day by day, becoming very successful over the years. Now the important thing about our fateful protagonist is that he is also involved in not just one, but multiple paranormal legends, the first being the Hanging Man that we referred to in the intro. It's the early 1920s. The weather was a typical dreary stormy day, and Dickie was just finishing up at the mill he owned on Dickey Boss Lane. As the doors shut for the end of the working day, there was a chill in the air, and the dim moonlight lit across the lane. Dickie removed the keys from the door for the last part of his day, and set up on his journey home. A close friend of Dickie, Turff, had been in town, and was scheduled to meet him later that evening for a pint of ale in the local pub. Henry was the school's headmaster. He commuted to Pluckley every day to watch over the school's day-to-day workings, tending to the children. Henry was a caring man, a gentle leader, and a brilliant teacher. From the stories that I have read, Henry and Dickie's friendship spans from when Henry first appeared in the county. As Dickie left the building, he buttoned up his overcoat, pulling his collar up to cover from the bitter wind that was beginning to swirl. Storm clouds overhead looked ominous, but Dickie pulled his coat tighter and carried on with his short journey to the end of the lane. As a crack of lightning and a roll of thunder began to announce the coming of a storm. Little did Dickie know, this would be a storm to end his life as he knew it. As the rain fell, the storm swelled into power, lightning forking across the sky. Thunder began to roar. Dickie sped down the lane to the alehouse, jumping inside the doors, out of the rain, pint in hand. He waited for Henry's arrival. Seconds turned into minutes. Minutes turned into hours, but no sign of Henry. At this point, Dickie was ready for home. He pulled on his overcoat, buttoned up, and set out on his short journey. As he stepped out into the storm that had been raging on, he looked up the lane to his mill. Rain hammering down his face already. Just 2 short steps out of the establishment, a massive roll of thunder signalled the arrival of lightning. One strike is all it took to set the mill ablaze, shocking him to his very core. Seeing his livelihood scorched and flaming, he knew that this was the end of his once prosperous living. Dickie stood in the middle of the storm, broken-hearted, watching the mill that he loved crumble and die. What had happened this fateful evening? He had lost it all. He was stood up by his best friend, lost everything, but little did he know, it was about to get worse. The very next day, he shifted through the rubble where the mill once stood. He could hear something coming from the bottom of the lane. He could hear shrieks. He could hear screams. This was children. These were children's screams. These were children's shrieks of horror. He bolted to find out what all the commotion was about. As he ran to the end of the lane, his discovery explained where Henry was the past evening. For hanging from the tree was Henry Turff. Dickie's best friend had taken his own life by way of hanging. Now, it didn't take long for stories of the hanging man to start. As early as a year later, people have had sightings. As the years go by, sightings of a hanging man have been spotted by many a tourist visiting Britain's most haunted village. People are said to walk down Dickie's Lane to see a man hanging from that very tree. A journalist once wrote and described seeing Henry hanging from that tree wearing a green blazer and striped trousers, bringing credence to the sightings of the schoolmaster. People have said to have seen the man in broad daylight and not late at night. But also, differing stories say if you walk down that lane late at night, you will see the swinging of a man from that very tree. As for Dickie, from what I read, Dickie died of natural causes. But on a night of a storm, Dickie's ghost has been spotted throughout the lane, standing guard outside his mill. He has been spotted walking the lane with his head in his hands, shrieking in anguish and pain. People new to the village have walked up to this pained man only for him to disappear before they arrive, melting into the storm. So real is the ghost of Dickie, tourists late at night have tried to call upon neighbours to calm the panicked man, only to arrive with nobody standing there. So that was the stories of Dickie and Henry. Many more sightings and stories surrounding the town of Pluckley, 15 to be precise. If you would like me to cover these, then please let me know down in the comments. If this is your first time on the channel, please consider subscribing for more stories like this one every Monday. But for now, whether you're running through a storm and hear someone wailing behind you, or responding to a friend in need, remember, you don't have to be afraid of what's behind you.